Hey everyone, I'm Carey Pena. Thank you so much for listening and for watching. We're glad to have you with us today. And today we have Renee Scherzer, a mom whose daughter has been the victim of relentless bullying, and also Nicole Stanton, the First Lady of Phoenix and founder of the Dion Initiative, named after her brother, who was also the victim of bullying. Ladies, thank you both for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Renee, I want to start with you. Tell me a little bit about what has happened to your daughter. She's currently in 6th grade, and you guys have really had a rough road.
Well, now we're at a new school, so it got us to the point where we did have to change schools. She was in 4th grade. Her friend moved away, and as soon as her friend moved away, the bullying started. So it was the daily taunts from the kids. She came home and first said, "Mom, the hair on my arms is too long. Can we shave it?" And I said, "God made you that way. You're Italian, and what can you do with those arms?" So we started empowering her with words of what she would say, what the kids would say to her, and she's the child that you don't think would be bullied. She played football for 11 seasons with the boys. She's still girly. She stands up for what she believes in, but she would walk in the lunchroom, and the girls would say, "Oh, we got to cover our eyes. You're so disgusting. You're so ugly. We can't even look at you." And
that breaks my heart, even hearing you describing that. What was that like for you as a mother?
I didn't sleep for about 2 months. She would come home, and I was sharing earlier that we would watch Dancing with the Stars, a typical show we'd watch, and one of the episodes was about your most memorable year, and it was a dance about bullying. And the beginning, the song "Try" came on. It still makes me cry. And the words came up, "disgusting, ugly," and my daughter looked at me and said, "That's me." And I looked at her and I said, It's not going to be you. I said, Mom's making a change. We would pray every day going to school that the girls would be nice to her. And then even in the midst of it, when I went to pick up my kids one day, she was the last one coming out. And she finally came out. She had 3 boys physically grab her. They grabbed her neck. They pushed her, pulled her. And not one parent, student, or child stopped to help her. And as a parent, you go through the channels, you go talk to the teachers, you talk to the principals. I was a co-room mom, I emailed parents. I went and visited her at lunch and saw the behavior myself, and I went to the teacher and said, "We're leaving, this is not acceptable." And so at that point, we knew we weren't getting anywhere. The school didn't take it seriously. She was put in rooms, her against the bullies. So she'd be her against 3 others, her against 2 others, and she was made to feel like there was something wrong with her. The parents, there was not one parent that stood alongside us. And since we've left, I've had other parents come to me that were in her grade and are experiencing the same things and share their stories and feeling the same thing I did. So things haven't even changed since we left.
And I appreciate the fact that, we had a conversation before the show, and we're not mentioning the name of the school just because I haven't reached out to them, and so I think that's unfair. But obviously it got so deep, and you felt so helpless that you changed to schools.
What I did is I left. I went to every school, private, public, charter, and went to the tours. I met the principals, talked about what programs they had in place or lack of. A lot of it was Band-Aids and what we had experienced in the past, or we do assemblies, which I'd seen in a previous school, the success or lack of success of just putting an assembly out. But I actually interviewed families because I thought, if the schools and the system is not going to address it, kids are going to be kids. My kids are not perfect. They make mistakes, and it's the parents that I started realizing was part of the challenge that we had of getting a resolution, because I was always faced with, it's not my child, it's not my problem, it's your daughter, I'm sorry she can't make friends at school, I'm sorry that she's the outcast.
And Nicole, I want to get to you in just a second because obviously you are married to the mayor of Phoenix, but in your own right, you have created an amazing legacy of fighting on this issue and on behalf of kids in the state of Arizona. But Renee, let me just ask you first, what do you think should have been done?
In my daughter's situation, or just in general? I just would have loved to have her been heard and not been treated like she was the problem. I would have loved for the kids, for there to be actually some recourse. When the boys grabbed her, they were pulled. They were not caught on the right video angle, I guess, and so they just were pulled out of class and spoke to. So I would have loved to had some type of.
That seems pretty shocking. That's a physical altercation that occurred. So,
and I think the families, the parents. I emailed 5 parents, and only one responded to me. and the subject line was pretty blunt, but there just was the kids. There was such a great opportunity for a learning experience for these girls. Incredible learning opportunity of what their words do, how you do treat others. And I guess what I would like to have seen different is something that was moving that direction versus pointing the finger at my daughter that she was the problem and that they weren't. So I would have loved to have seen something like that.
Now, the two of you have not met before today, so Nicole, this is the first time you're hearing this story. What is your reaction when you see Renee explaining what has happened to her daughter? And she's a sixth grader. I mean, these are young girls, and how devastating this was for this family.
Yeah, well, I would like to say it's the first time that I've heard a story like this, but unfortunately it's not. Mm-hmm. And sadly, I've heard stories of even kindergartners who have been bullied on buses and in very cruel ways. So, unfortunately, this is not unique to this family. It should be. It should be something that we don't hear about as often as we do, but it happens in schools every day. Every day, children wake up, just like her daughter, feeling unsafe, feeling like they don't want to go to school, and that just should never be the case.
I've heard people ask me, and in general ask the question, is this being overstated? Bullying is not happening as much as we're hearing about, but it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I will say that the numbers are not going up. The data is not showing that the numbers are worse today than they were when you and I were in school, or the three of us were in school. But that doesn't mean that it's okay. I mean, if
it's a different type of bullying, though, right? Mm-hmm. And
yes.
That's what I mean. I'm no expert in this field, but I have reported on it quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And what I can ascertain is with social media, it's a never-ending cycle. So, when we were growing up, you might go to school and face some really tough days, and I know that a lot of people had that experience. But now it never shuts off because you get home and they're blowing up your phone, they're taunting you on social media. Didn't your daughter have a situation where someone was taking surreptitious pictures of her and posting them on social?
That happened to someone I knew. Yes, and also getting text messages that spread around that of this gal's sexual orientation.
So, Nicole, you started what's called the Dion Initiative, and this is named after your brother, who himself was a victim of bullying. Tell me a little bit about what happened in his case.
Well, what happened in his case, I mean, anytime you have a child who is different, you open up the opportunity for them to be bullied. Any difference can create that. His happened to be that he was more feminine than the other boys in his school. He didn't play football, he didn't play sports. And so the boys would chase him home from school, throwing rocks at him, calling him names about his appearance and his femininity. And at one point in time, when he was a teenager, he was actually involved in a physical altercation where he was attacked very viciously, ended up having to go to the hospital, and it was very severe. And then ultimately he died of HIV when he was 28 years old, having nothing to do with the bullying. But I started working on anti-bullying because I wanted to honor his memory. And the anti-bullying was something that I knew that I could try to make an impact on. It was important to me.
What I think is really interesting about what you are doing right now is you are trying to get to the heart of the numbers. And talk to me about this. You were just talking about the school safety issue in general, not just with regard to bullying, but with regard to violence in our schools. And explain to me what ACEs is.
Sure. A couple things there. I mean, first of all, this is really a school safety issue. Bullying is a school safety issue. And if a child doesn't feel comfortable going to school and they feel unsafe, then it doesn't really matter what kind of a great program we have in the school to teach them. If they don't feel safe, they're not going to learn. And so we need to make sure that we create safe learning environments for kids, and bullying is one of those things that makes kids feel unsafe. So what we're trying to do at the Dion Initiative is to collect data from schools about how many times children bring weapons to school, how many times are kids absent from school, and for what reason? Was it because they felt unsafe? Was it because they were being bullied? We have to get behind the numbers because for a number of reasons. We can compare one school to another and say, is this school experiencing more violence, more safety issues than another? What is the school that's experiencing less violence doing right? What could the other school learn from that? We can't know which programs are working and which ones are not unless you have data to back it up. That's what the Dion Initiative and my work has been about from day one, is trying to make sure that whatever programs we bring into schools, they work. Because as she and I have shared, bringing in a speaker once a year for an assembly to talk about how you need to be kind to people, that may make you feel good for that hour, but it doesn't have a lasting impact. And that's really what we need to do, is to put in programs that are embedded in the schools, into each class, with each teacher, and create an environment where bullying is really not tolerated, and it's not even something that the children would even consider doing.
Talk to me about the data that you have seen and studied that shows the long-lasting effects for kids, and you mentioned even as young as kindergarten, which is so shocking to think about someone bullying at age 5 and 6, but it happens. The long-lasting effects of this and
Sure.
how it manifests in our life.
Yeah, sure. The data that we're talking about there is called ACEs, and I was fortunate enough to partner with Phoenix Children's Hospital, who 2 years ago collected for the first time the data on the number of ACEs that children in Arizona experience. ACEs are good in poker. Remember this. They are not good for children. What ACEs stand for are adverse childhood experiences, and they can be a myriad of things, but things like bullying, violence in the home, loss of a parent due to death or incarceration, extreme poverty, anything yucky or bad that happens to a kid when they're little is considered an adverse childhood experience. The data shows that in Arizona, we have more kids than other states who are experiencing ACEs, but we also have more kids who are experiencing multiple ACEs, and that is even worse. And the reason why ACEs are important, and the reason why Phoenix Children's Hospital partnered with us, and we've been promoting the information on ACEs, is that they have long-term health consequences for kids. They're considered toxic stress in a child's life, and they actually affect a child's physiological outlook in life. So for example, these kids, unless these ACEs are mitigated, and I'll talk about that in a second, these kids experience more cancer down the road, more diabetes, more drug issues, drug and alcoholism issues, suicide rate goes up. The more ACEs that you have, the more likely it is that one of those bad things are going to happen to you, or that you'll yourself be incarcerated. So these children grow up more subject to serious disease and serious things happening in their life. I say unless they are mitigated. ACEs are not fatal to a child. Obviously, children are bullied in life, and they can go on to live productive, healthy lives. What they need to have in their lives is someone who is a responsible adult, who can make them understand that they are safe, like a mother like this, for example, that they can understand that they are safe, that there's a resiliency there. Programs like Big Brothers Big Sisters, some sort of adult in their life that tells them that everything is going to be okay, and is really watching over them, being vigilant, and making sure they're getting the help that they need, be it psychological help or otherwise, to get them through that.
What do you think needs to be done specifically when you talk about programs being implemented in our schools? In Arizona, by the way, you were talking about, doesn't rank really well when you talk about the ACEs issue.
No, it doesn't. I mean, more kids in Arizona have ACEs, and more kids in Arizona have multiple ACEs.
Do you know why that is?
Well, from my perspective, I don't think we invest enough in families. If you don't invest in families, you can't invest in kids. If you don't have healthy parents, you can't expect them to have a healthy home life for their children. And so, I don't think we invest enough early on in children.
What should we do?
Well, I know that this isn't popular in Arizona, but I think we need to spend a little more money. Lots of schools don't have school resource officers. Yeah. They don't have school nurses. Most schools have been stripped of those things.
And the teachers, frankly, are overwhelmed.
There's
overwhelmed. A lot of great teachers out there. And what I've been told is that reports of bullying are hard to verify because you have multiple kids saying different things, and you can't just start ejecting everyone who's being accused of being a bully. So I've been told that it's really hard to pinpoint and say, yes, that for sure is the definition of bullying, right?
Right. It has many, many definitions too. I mean, it runs a broad spectrum. But also, you're right. I mean, these schools are drinking water out of a fire hose. So when it comes down to choosing a program, which is what, my Dion initiative, we've tried to help schools guide them in the right direction to picking programs that are based on evidence that they actually work. Those programs take time to implement, and it's not easy, like we were talking about, just bringing somebody in for an assembly and then checking the box and being done with that requirement for the year. It really requires a commitment by the parents, by the teachers, by the administration, that they're going to create that kind of environment. I think when I did my first anti-bullying summit, you interviewed with me Dr. Dan Olveas, and the Olveas anti-bullying program. It is a systemic program that is embedded in every single thing a school does.
So it's not just the assembly can be good,
it can
but
be part
you need
of it.
a lot more than that. I mean, my children are twins, first grade, and they went to an assembly, which I love that the school is doing this at such a young age. And the gentleman came in and he talked to them about how he has dwarfism and how he was bullied at a very young age. And he was very specific. What I thought was interesting was it opened up a great conversation for me to have with my twins, not just about bullying, but about, hey guys, so if you see someone doing this, what will you do? And we had a very specific conversation about how to stop it, because a lot of this too is a bystander issue. I could see where you don't always want to get involved, but that makes it tough because someone like your daughter then suffers. How is she doing today?
Well, yesterday she had come home because a new child at her new school had come to school and was having that kind of behavior towards another girl at school, and she pulled her aside and said, that's not what we do here, and this is how you treat others. So she stands up for other kids all the time, and she's got a loud voice. So
how is her self-esteem?
It's great. She still tears up talking about it, and she actually even has a kindness challenge on YouTube that she created when she went through a situation. But to see her and be an advocate, she wrote an article about it. She's a voice for other kids because she knows how hard it is. There was kids she stood up for that couldn't stand up for themselves, and so she's very aware of her surroundings and being a voice to continue her efforts in advocacy as well.
What advice do you have, Renee, for parents who might be listening who are going through something similar with their kids? And it's not always easy to have that conversation with your kids and to find out exactly what's going on. What advice do you have?
First, understand you're not alone. I felt very alone. We did in that situation. And don't stop fighting and communicating with your child. If
Be
you
an
have
advocate for your child.
And go to school. It doesn't matter if you're the only one person standing, as we were. It's your child, and when they see that you're standing alongside them and you're in it together and they're not alone, I just think the journey doesn't have to be as difficult that way. And look at resources, make changes, do the difficult things. We didn't expect to make a school change. We can walk to our old school. We moved to be by that school, but don't be afraid to do the difficult things to put your daughter and children in a better situation.
I really appreciate you coming in today to share the story. I know it's hard to talk about, very painful, but clearly your family is sticking together and learning from this experience and letting it help you all be stronger. So thank you so much. Nicole, where can people find out more about the Dion Initiative? And by the way, I'll just have to say this. You're amazing. You're amazing. I mean, you are, a political wife. I guess, that's something impressive in its own right, but you are your own person, and you have really done your brother proud. So I just want to say that, because you've never stopped fighting, and you fight with specificity to get answers to solve the problem. So I just want to commend you on that. Where can people find out more? www.dioninitiative.org is where they can find out more. All right.
And get in touch with me. I mean, certainly, as I told you before, people reach out and call me all the time. If they're having a child who's having a problem in a school, we're always happy to give advice and help.
You guys are both
It's
wonderful.
wonderful.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thanks to all of you for listening. We always appreciate having you with us and watching us now on our live stream. And you can see the show on my Facebook page at Carey Pena or on our site, which is growing. And we thank all of you for checking in with us, inspiredmedia360.com. And be sure to subscribe so you stay in touch with us. And we always love to hear your feedback, especially on important issues like this one. Today's show produced and engineered by Shannon Hernandez, brought to you by Inspired Media 360. Until next time, stay inspired.